We'll call to order the Board of Zoning Appeals. Jerry, would you lead us in the pledge to the flag, please?
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please remain standing for a moment of silence. Thank you. Call a roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Here.
Joe Crowell,
Here.
Jerry Sartain,
Here.
Joe Machado, Michael Rather,
Here.
Jared Barrett,
Here.
and Cantrell.
Present.
We do have a quorum. In the absence of Mr. Machado, Jared Barrett will be voting.
You have the minutes of the last meeting. Are there any changes, corrections to those minutes? Entertain a motion that they be approved. Have a motion that be approved. Do we have a second? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, like sign. Minutes are approved. We have 4 items from Surefire Fireworks, and we'll take a presentation from our staff on all 4 of those at the same time. Then we'll go back and have a public hearing on each one of them. Do we have anyone here from Sure Fireworks that will be representing all 4 of those? Okay. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chairman Cantrell. I'll go over the first application and the following in order. Application 2014-21 involves the location at 20 exception, a temporary special exception approval for the sale of fireworks on this property. The site is a commercially zoned property. There's a convenience store and gas station located on the property. The applicant has operated a stand from the site before, and we had no issues or problems with the operation of the temporary fireworks stand from this property. Those are photos of the surrounding area. There's actually, we expect another application for the adjacent site, the Dollar General site. And we have not received any calls regarding this application, and that's the layout of the property and the location of the tent. Application 2014-22 involves the property located at 6044 Lebanon Pike. It's a commercial neighborhood zone property. They have operated a fireworks stand from this site for many years. We have not experienced any issues or complaints regarding the operation of the fireworks stand from this particular site. We considered this site for a vegetable stand last month, and the surrounding area and the site plan that they proposed. Application 2014-23 involves the property located at 5855 Shelbyville Highway. It's a commercial neighborhood zone property, and they are seeking special exception for the fireworks stand. The site's developed as a convenience store and gas station. Surrounding uses include residential and commercial. We posted a sign on the property. We've not received any calls from this regarding the sign, and they have operated a stand from the site prior years and with no complaints. The last fireworks stand, 2014-24, involves the property located at the intersection of Highway 99 and Clear Ridge Drive. It's a commercial services zone. They have operated a stand here for the last 3 years, I believe, and they will be located on the vacant commercial site, but the customers will be using the common driveway on the Dollar General site, on the site lot adjacent to the property. We've not had any issues or complaints regarding the operation of the stand from this site. We've not received any phone calls regarding this particular request, and these are photos of the surrounding area and the site. And we posted the sign on the property, and this is the plan that they propose, where the tent will be located on the grassy area. And that concludes our presentation.
Board members, do you have any questions on any of the 4 sites? Okay, we'll go back now and we'll open a public hearing on the Las Casas Pike. Anyone who would like to come forward and make a comment? Close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
I'll second the motion.
Have a motion to be approved. Have a second. Call the roll, please.
It's for all 4?
No, this is just on the Las Casas Pike site.
Application 2014-21.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Next item is the public hearing for the Lebanon Pike site. Do we have anyone here who would like to speak on that? Close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
Make a motion be approved, Mr.
Have a
Chairman.
motion to be approved.
Second.
Second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
We'll open the public hearing on the Shelbyville Highway site. Do we have anyone who would like to speak on this? Close the public hearing. Call the roll, please. Or let's get a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve. Second.
Have a motion, we have a second. Did we get a second? Okay, got it. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
We'll open the public hearing on Highway 99 site. Do we have anyone who'd like to speak on this? Close the public hearing, we have a motion on it.
Move to approve, Chairman.
Have a motion to be approved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Carries, sir.
Okay, now moving on in our agenda, the Mohammed Fari site is a request for a home computer or a home-based business, computers and electronics. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you, Chairman Cantrell. Application 2014-25 involves the property located at 3374 Shelbyville Highway. The request is for special exception approval, allowing the establishment of a major home-based business that will provide computer and electronics repair and programming. The property is zoned residential medium. The property is adjacent to the city-county boundary and is surrounded by residential uses in most directions except for across the street where you have a commercial development. The Walmart is being constructed across the street. So you have the existing home that's located on the property and the area for which the customers will access the property. The applicant has been provided with a list of all the conditions for the operation of the major home-based business and has indicated that they will comply with all of the conditions limiting the number of customers per day. It will comply with the signage requirements. The major home-based business allows someone to have a 5-square-foot sign that's attached to the principal structure. The applicant will be using a bonus room that's located towards the rear of the home for the operation of the home-based business. We've not received any phone calls with exception of one informational call. They did not indicate whether or not they were in favor or opposed to the request. And we posted a sign on the property. And the applicant provided us with a site plan. They do plan on adding additional parking in the front of the residential structure to accommodate the traffic, if any. And that concludes our presentation.
We have anyone here representing this request? Well, we don't. Is Mohammed here? Ken.
Are you having a public hearing?
We'll go ahead with a public hearing on this. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing.
Mr. Chairman, I guess before we do it, can we maybe move it to the bottom of the agenda just to see maybe if he's having something and shows up? And if he does, then maybe at that time
Okay,
we
we can move that to the end of the agenda.
can, and maybe he'll show up if he doesn't, then we can make him, okay.
Remind me to bring it back then.
All right, sir, thank you.
Okay, moving on. The next item we have is a request by Kevin Lee, and this is an addiction treatment center. And what do you have on that, please?
Thank you, Chairman Cantrell. Application 2014-26 involves the property located at 5110 Florence Road. The request is for a special exception approval allowing the establishment of an addiction treatment center upon the property located in the institutional zoning district. This property was recently rezoned in March to the institutional zone, and the applicant would like to develop an addiction treatment center consisting of 14 buildings that will be located towards the back of the site upon the property. The existing barn located towards the front of the site that's already on the property will be renovated with a new skin, according to the applicant, and will be used as part of the therapies offered at the center. Now, the applicant is here to give a presentation on this request, and so I'll be brief with our presentation. The surrounding properties are residential and commercial. The Roselawn Cemetery is adjacent to this property, and then you have Broad Street. It's Broad Street there, okay. And the site. We posted the sign on the property. Now, we have received phone calls, but it's not since this application's been applied for, but before the applicant appeared before the Planning Commission and the Board of Commissioners for the rezoning, we were aware of the applicant's plans. Actually, he held a neighborhood meeting prior to those meetings, and has the intentions of the development for this property have been of an addiction treatment center since the inception of this request. Doug, did you want to add? We've heard from the commissioner in this district and the applicant. The applicant in their written description had requested 90 beds. In its application, they would like to increase that to 96. We did not advertise a number or a limit in the public advertisements or the letters to the surrounding property owners. However, Doug has been in contact with the county commissioner, who will not be here tonight, and the applicant has been in contact with the commissioner, and the applicant would like to increase the number of beds or clients to be served to 96, and both the commissioner and the applicant seem to be comfortable with that particular number. So if the board would like to entertain incorporating that condition in its approval, should it decide to approve the request, then that's recommended by the commissioner. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, do we have anyone here representing this request? If you come around, please give us your name. One of our fine attorneys, and we'll give you more than 3 minutes.
Oh, I appreciate
How
that.
much more?
I appreciate that. Appreciate that. I'm Rick Murphy of the firm of Murphy Murphy. I represent the applicant, Mr. Kevin Lee, and his company, Et Project LLC. And I'll try to keep it short, but for lawyers, you know, that's a couple pages at least. So, a little background on Kevin. My firm, my father and I began working with Kevin when he entered into negotiations to purchase a piece of property from Buddy Oliver on Thompson Lane. That property ultimately was developed out as the Trust Point Rehabilitation Hospital, which is a beautiful facility. I don't know if y'all have had a chance to go in it, but it not only is a beautiful facility, but it also provided a much-needed service to the residents of our county. So, for example, you have a family member that gets in a car wreck, something like that, they can have rehabilitation there, or has an acute mental problem, they can go in for inpatient there. And those were things that were not available to us here in Rutherford County till Kevin brought this to us. And he did it in a way not only that was good for the community, created jobs, et cetera, but also very aesthetically pleasing and a Class A type of facility, as good as anything in Nashville. Kevin hails from Rutherford County. He's from Christiana. He went to MTSU. In a few minutes, he's going to give a brief PowerPoint presentation. We just felt, due to the nature of this kind of application, it was important for y'all to have full information about what he was planning on doing there. A little background. Before we began this process, we thought long and hard about how to go about approaching the neighbors, about how to do community outreach, because when people hear drug treatment facility, they get nervous. And so the first thing we did was we went and talked to Johnny Mitchell, the lawyer here in town. He owns an adjoining piece of property which he lives on, and Dad took him to lunch with Kevin, and they talked it out. And he's in favor of the application. Has been, in fact, wrote a letter in favor of the rezoning request, which we really appreciate. The other things that we have done, the property is a bit unusual since it's bordered by Florence Road, Mr. Mitchell's property, the Stones River in the back, and then Roselawn Cemetery. And so we don't have a residential subdivision or commercial center or something like that backing right up to it. So it's really a perfect location, but also is a bit difficult to figure out who to contact to have a neighborhood meeting. So we cast our net wide. We went to the closest residential subdivision we could find and sent out letters to neighbors. We had a neighborhood meeting before Planning Commission that was well attended at the Memorial Chapel at Roselawn. There were about 20 neighbors there. They had lots of very good questions. They were a little concerned about the use initially, but when Kevin went through his vision, they were all very supportive of the application, and I think all left with a feeling of comfort that it would be probably less impactful than building a subdivision there. Just a few things to point out. The property is 129 acres. We only asked to rezone 113 of it. The reason for that is that extra acreage in the front along Florence is going to serve as kind of a buffer. It's not going to be rezoned for any other use besides residential, just to give a little setback and buffering from the road. The improvements on the property are designed to be tucked back in the woods. The property kind of rolls as you look from Florence Road onto it. And then it's wooded in the back near the Stones River. And the idea is to have kind of a camp-like setting with a community meeting area and kind of, I wouldn't say cabins, because it's going to be much more luxurious than that, but kind of cabins tucked in the trees. So you're really not going to be able to tell that it's there. The idea is we want you to drive by and think it's a horse farm. Just a couple of other high points real quick. In terms of community outreach, after the neighborhood meeting, I sent a letter out to everyone who attended. I always do, telling them to contact me if they had questions or concerns. If their neighbors had questions or concerns, that we would be willing to meet with them to address those. All the feedback we got was positive. And we had a unanimous vote at both Planning Commission and County Commission. So, and in fact, the commissioner out there, Commissioner Jordan, owns a property across the Stones River. And when you can get his endorsement as a neighbor and the commissioner, I think we've probably got a pretty good plan, in my opinion. There were some questions that were raised, and Mrs. Glonner touched on those, on the number of patients there at any time. Now, this is a voluntary facility. This is for people who know they have a drug or alcohol problem and are clean and want to stay clean and want a tranquil environment. One of the major theories behind this kind of treatment, I understand, is it's pastoral, it's rural, it's peaceful, it's quiet. So it would be against our business purposes and the business plan and the treatment to have a lot of people on site. We agreed by letter that I submitted to 96 beds. That would be 96 patients at any time. We feel like that's sufficient. It's a very large piece of property, but that's both in keeping with our objectives and my client's business objectives, but also gives you and the neighbors some comfort as to the number of people who will be residing there at any time. Basically, we've approached this rezoning and now this request for special exception with the idea that being a good neighbor is good business. If we do not develop the site in a way that is attractive and amenable and comforting and quiet and peaceful, it won't be successful. And so those are the things that the neighbors want, but those are the things that we want as well. And this is one of those times that the use and our desire and my client's desire from a business standpoint and the desires of the neighbors work well together. Mr. Matt Taylor is here with SEC. He's going to be helping with the engineering, the site plan, hopefully, if we get approval tonight, the design of the layout of the campus. And it really will be more like a campus, like a camp, than an institutional building like a hospital. My client, Mr. Kevin Lee, is here. He's going to give a brief PowerPoint presentation, a little bit about his vision. We feel it's important that you get an understanding of that as well. Also, we feel like it meets all the requirements under the ordinance. We would ask that you would vote in favor of providing the special exception. And we thank you for your time on this beautiful afternoon. Thank you.
Chairman Cantrell and members of the Board of Zoning Appeals, I want to give you the same PowerPoint presentation, and I'll go through it quickly, that we gave to the Board of Commissioners. I think the content is what you would want to see, so I want to go through it with you.
Could I get you to state your name for the record, please?
I am so sorry. I'm Kevin Lee. Thank you, ma'am. All right. What we've got is a project here that we want to develop a facility for folks who are going through addiction treatment. They come to us voluntarily, and they want to live clean. They've decided they're going to turn the page, so to speak, and improve their quality of life. And so we want to have a healthy place for them. So it's a clean living facility, as we say. People who enroll and come to us stay for at least a month. We'd like them to stay about 3 months, but depending on various issues, it's a month or more. It can be 9 months. Flip it. Are you flipping it, Doug? Thank you. All right. The facility would be licensed by the state of Tennessee Department of Mental Health. As I said, it's an addiction treatment center, and we'll have accreditation by the Commission on Accreditation of Rehabilitation Facilities. That's a national standard. People come to the facility, they're enrolling, and they're receiving daily therapy, so they've got a daily schedule that they have that they adhere to, you can flip it. And those activities involve group therapy sessions, 12-step type programs and meetings, individual therapy with licensed counselors, exercise, hiking, biking, yoga, horse equine therapy. We're going to have an organic farm if we get the project approved. Nutritional counseling is very, very important. And family therapy sessions where we can engage families because, as we say, our clients have to have a support system. Thank you. Our mission is to assist each client we serve in supporting in his or her recovery from addictive behaviors and for them to stay healthy. There's a great need for this type of facility. In the United States, there's about 29 million adults who need addiction treatment. It's the latest study we just got. That's a stunning number. So that's about 9.5% of our population. And Middle Tennessee and Rutherford County are particularly underserved. I don't know his title, but the director of the Department of Mental Health in the state of Tennessee, Rod Bragg, told me that in our state we are serving 11% of the people who need this kind of treatment. So it'd be an important, significant new benefit and a help in the quality of life of our people, our families who are involved. And as Brick mentioned, we developed Trustpoint Hospital on North Thompson Lane, and having that hospital that now admits about 150 new people a month, believe it or not, and it's a acute stage facility. Those folks could not get that care here locally until we open Trustpoint. It'll be the same story with this facility if we can get it approved. Okay. As Brick mentioned, we want to have a very aesthetically pleasing facility. We want it to be very attractive. We want to win the photo award because a lot of people who choose to come to see us will come from distances far away, and they want to have an attractive facility. So that we want to maintain that rural character and the rural atmosphere. It's a key component of people getting well. They need to be in an area where they can get back to nature, so to speak. It's important. Okay. So the facility and the structures are designed to minimize the facility from the road. The reason for that is we want it to be private, and we don't really want people driving in who we don't want coming to our property. We won't have a big sign out on the road saying the name of the operation. We'll just have the street number, 5110 Florence Road. And I've got a schematic, Mr. Chairman, if you choose and want me to pass it out. There might be one still in the slides. I'll try to describe the way the buildings will lay out in our design. There it is. I don't know that you can see that very well, but Florence Road is on the left-hand side of the slide. Roselawn Cemetery is in the lower part, for most of the lower part. And near the Stones River, there's vacant wooded land there. On the other side of the Stones River is the Jordan Farm, and then Mr. Mitchell's is on the north side, which is the top side of the slide. And then there's Florence Road, and it's already been indicated there are houses across Florence Road. But when we drive in, we'll go a few thousand feet before we get to any building, and other than the barn that is there now, if you drive by, you'll see an old barn that was built about 50-something years ago, and the structure of the barn in terms of the foundation and the frame is good. We'll just reskin it and make it look real good. But then you drive on back under our proposed plan there and get to an administration building and then residential buildings close to the river but outside the floodplain. Okay. That's the picture of the property as is now. Looks pretty good and green there in that picture. Okay, that's the existing barn. Again, we'll reskin it, make it look good. And the proposed driveway, as we just saw in the schematic, is not very far from Roselawn. I think it'd be about 300 yards from the boundary. I'm not sure. I wouldn't want to mislead you with that, but it's to the right of the barn and would go straight back. And that's just a picture of a barn and a fence and a barn in the background. That fence is what we would have for the boundary of the property and horse pastures. Okay. So what we requested, this goes back, as I said earlier, this is the slideshow we did at the Board of Commissioners. We requested and received approval for institutional zoning of approximately 113 out of the 129 acres total. And the 16 acres that's along the front, going back close to the barn, was not rezoned. It's still residential. Okay. All right. So that was my request for approval in the Board of Commissioners.
Any questions from the board?
How much parking you have here? I see 80 spaces. I'm trying to read the numbers off this thing that we got. You said you're going to have 60 employees and 96 clients. I was just wondering about how much parking you're going to need, or if that's going to be enough.
Yes. We, in general, we don't need parking for the clients because they don't even bring a car. So at any one point in time, if we were at capacity, we built out to 96, at any one time of the day, we would have about 60 employees, so let's allow for some visitors. So we'd probably have 90 parking spaces. That's a real good guess for you.
Any other questions?
If I could just interject something in there too. As far as the parking requirements, whatever, he's still going to be bound by whatever the ordinance requires anyway. So even if the concept plans showed a certain number of spots and it wasn't enough, he'd be required by the ordinance to provide a little more anyway, but just so you understand.
Thank you. You may be seated. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. Close the public hearing. We have a motion on it.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that it be approved based upon, I guess if your staff had any or stipulations.
We have a motion that be
I'll second it.
approved. We have a second.
What was, I'm sorry, I didn't, what was the motion?
Based
To approve
upon
it.
what you all are,
Okay, so the
requirements.
and the limit, about the limit of the number of the 96, were you going to put that in there as well? Because I think
The
Commissioner.
limit of the 96, that was a recommendation by the staff, correct?
Well, we didn't really recommend one way or the other as far as the number. I know during this whole process, that was something that came up several times. I know Commissioner Jordan felt strongly about having that in there. So since that number appears to be acceptable to everybody, I think it'd be okay
All
to
right,
put that in
I'll
there.
make,
as that.
yeah, I'll make that part of my motion.
Thank you.
That part of your second? Okay. Call a, pardon? Have you got that? Okay. Call a roll, please.
Keith Bratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Jerry Sartain,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Diane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries, sir.
Okay, the next item we have is a request for a cell tower, and this is on Betty Ford Road. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you, Chairman Cantrell. Application 2014-17 involves the property located at 4272 Betty Ford Road. The property zone residential medium density, and the request is for special exception approval for the establishment of 199-foot monopole tower. This is a photo of the aerial photograph of the property, and the site is developed as a residential home farm, and the tower will be located towards the rear of the property. These are photos of the surrounding area. Most of the surrounding development includes farms and large single-family acreage tracts. We have not received any phone calls in opposition or in favor of the request. This is the existing home that's located on the site. Now, the applicant has provided us with additional information that the applicant's agent will present to you, but also as a part of our zoning ordinance, there is a provision in our telecommunications tower regulations that enables the planning director to ask for a third-party expert review to determine the compliance with our cell phone or telecommunications tower regulations, and the applicants were asked to provide that. This is a third-party unbiased review. The applicant selected Larry Perry, who actually performs reviews for other jurisdictions in the area, and his report was distributed to each of you at the beginning of the meetings tonight, and his findings were that the application does meet the criteria for telecommunications towers, and with two conditions, and the conditions were that they supply a letter indicating that they will comply with our provisions regarding any future instances where the tower is abandoned, and that the tower management company will allow for co-locations for different carriers to be located on the tower. And the applicant has provided those letters as a result of Mr. Perry's findings. Mr. Perry is actually here should you have any questions, and I believe Doug passed a handout prior to the meeting from Mr. Perry to explain some of the cellular technologies out there. And we posted the sign on the property. This is the site plan. You can see the leased area that's located towards the rear of the property. The access drive will be located off of Jefferson Pike. And just the site plan as well as the elevation of the tower. And that concludes our presentation.
Okay, we have someone here representing this request. If you come around, please.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Joshua Denton, on behalf of the applicant, New Singular Wireless PCS LLC, also known as AT&T Mobility, which I'll refer to as AT&T. I have with me here this evening Mr. Aaron Frampton and Mr. Stephen Kopelman of Jacobs, and Mr. Kendall Keeman of AT&T, who is an engineer. I'm going to ask Mr. Frampton to give a brief overview of the project, and then I have a few more items to raise to the board's attention. Thank you.
Good afternoon, board members. Aaron Frampton, zoning manager with Jacobs. I'm here to speak on behalf of New Singular Wireless LLC special exception application for a new 199-foot monopole located at 4272 Betty Ford Road. The primary focus of this new facility is to improve coverage at East Jefferson Pike, Lascasa Pike, and Betty Ford Road, in addition to the surrounding vicinity. Extensive search efforts were unable to identify a viable co-location alternative. This specific proposed site location was selected because it is situated in an area suitable to fill the specific band coverage gap illustrated on the attached RF affidavit that should be in your packets. It is situated on a rural property which is bordered on all sides by mature trees. The proposed monopole is set back approximately 3/10 of a mile from East Jefferson Pike and more than 4/10 of a mile from Betty Ford Road. This monopole facility meets setback requirements and will be built capable of accommodating 3 additional carriers. It will not be lighted and will conform to all county, state, and federal requirements. On tab 2 of your packets, or as you can see up here, you'll find a series of maps that illustrate our efforts within the search ring, the proximity of nearby towers, and an RF propagation map overlaid with a search ring for scale and context.
I have one question here. Do you know the setback from the right line, how many feet off that line?
Staff report indicates that the tower will be located 205 feet from the nearest property line.
Thank you, Mr. Frampton. I would like to point the board to the supplemental materials that we delivered earlier today for your review. At tab 1 is the letter that we have submitted in response to Mr. Perry's request with respect to compliance with discontinuance of use and the obligations under section 1105L of the ordinance, and also with respect to co-location. So we heard Mr. Perry's concerns and have addressed those by letter as requested. At tab 2, as Mr. Frampton indicated, to the extent the board has questions, we've got the search ring maps that detail the other alternative sites considered, and also the towers in the area. At tab 3, we have a fall zone report that shows that the fall radius of the tower, according to the registered engineer who supplied that, is, I believe, 143 feet in radius. And we've supplied at tab 4 a radio frequency electromagnetic fields exposure report, which we brought before the board at the prior hearing last month for another site, which just shows that we are in compliance and well under the RF emissions requirements set forth by the FCC, which addresses the issue as to whether or not claims of health effects can be considered. So we believe we meet that. And then lastly, as a new valuation study prepared by Greystone Valuation Services, that's tab 5, in which Mr. Simpson concluded that Based on his study, he's of the professional opinion that the telecommunication structures in Rutherford County have no negative impact on the values, marketability, or rates of appreciation of surrounding properties based on his analysis as set forth therein. So we're happy to take questions on any and all of this if the board would prefer for us to come back. And on the RF statement that was submitted, I would just point out we've got Mr. Keyman here to answer questions. He's an engineer from AT&T who worked on that RF affidavit, which shows that there's significant high band in vehicle and in building coverage gap in the area, and the after maps show how that will be remedied based on the coloration.
Let's see if any of the board has any questions of you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Any questions here?
I just want to make sure I'm correct. So the two recommendations that the letter for confirming the carriers can use co-locate, and you also are in agreement with submitting a letter for the 180-day period if you don't. So you're in agreement with those two recommendations?
Yes, sir. If you'll look at tab 1 in your notebook that was filed today, that's the letter addressing that, which does confirm that we will comply with all obligations related to discontinuance of use of the proposed monopole pursuant to the ordinance provision that's applicable. And then also that's where we confirm in that last sentence that co-location on the monopole will be available to other carriers as set forth. American Towers, who we had submit the co-location certificate and letter with our original application, we've enclosed that and indicated that yes, we will comply with that. So we believe we've addressed Mr. Perry's concerns.
Jerry?
I mean, I know what I think a monopole is, but I haven't seen a picture.
Okay.
You have one.
Yeah, we can. Do you have one, Aaron? Or there's a picture in the ordinance as well.
One of the green ones, is it going to be just a galvanized tower? What's it going to be?
I'll let you speak to that, Mr. Frampton.
Not sure if in the packets that Josh sent out, if you have a copy of the site plan. Josh, is the site plan in the packets they received? Do you have the site plan available?
We do send out the power elevation as part of the packets. However, it's on an 8.5 by
On sheet
11.
S1, I could just pass this around to the board members if they'd like to.
Go ahead.
Power.
There we go.
I get it.
No. Monopole right here, no guy wires.
Any other questions? Thank you. We'll open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. If you'll come around. You'll give us your name and share information.
Okay. My name is W. Stephen Bailey, and I live across the street from that. I'm going to pass something around. This is different.
These have to become part of the record.
You can keep them.
Okay, great.
That's fine. I've got some interesting experiences. I've been a ham radio operator. I'm probably one of the best amateur opticians in the Eastern United States, at least, and I have got those pictures show my telescope. I've got the second biggest telescope in the state of Tennessee, and I am concerned about lighting, and I may have missed what he said about the lighting. If you would be no lighting, okay. Another thing I'm concerned about, being a property owner, I have seen property values drop where these towers have gone up before. I'm not an expert on this, but I've seen that, so I would like to see a little more evidence, if possible, on that. I think some other folks have got a bigger dog in the fight than I do on this. And I'm also somewhat concerned with high frequency radiation from radio transmitters. I do know if you can get enough radiation around a person, it can affect people's health. And there's all kinds of debates about this now, and it's so relatively new, even at this point in time, that there's no real firm expert opinions on whether it causes brain damage or it doesn't. I see studies going one way or than the other. But I have some real concerns about putting something like this up in a general residential area, because there are various, I'm sorry, I had open heart surgery about 3 years ago, and I lose a word. But there are residences, in the visible range of this tower, and those are my concerns.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next.
Good afternoon. My name is Wayne Williams. I, along with my wife Carol and my sister-in-law Jane Follis back there, and Russ Follis, we own the property directly adjacent to where this tower is going to be. We were approached, as everyone probably else in that area had some property concerns or property in that area about the tower. We elected not to do it for the simple reason we felt that aesthetically it was going to be an eyesore. We were concerned about what our neighbors thought. And we talked about it, and we made the decision not to do it. And I'm not saying anyone's wrong for making that decision. I'm just saying it was our choice not to, because of the simple fact, like I said, we felt aesthetically it was not going to be a benefit to anyone around there, especially our neighbors across the street, the neighbors behind us. We do not live on the property. The property has been in my wife's and sister-in-law's family for over 50 years. My father-in-law, Marvin Short, passed away several years ago and sold the property to us, basically. We do actively work on the farm. We're up there all the time, or I'm up there a lot. We do have the property leased out presently. We have talked about various projects on that farm over the years, but as I said, it's been in my wife's family and my sister-in-law's family for over more than 60 years. Matter of fact, everything on the other side of the road at one time belonged to their family. And Marvin Short sold off the property to the Holbrook farm, but he kept this particular farm. We have various things over the years we've talked about, and if you mind, can I pass these out to each one of the members
Just
here?
go ahead.
Okay. This is a little plan that came out a few years ago, took 3 or 4 years ago. Matter of fact, it's probably been closer to 5 years ago now, where we had at one time considered possibly selling the property or cutting it up and selling off sections of it. This, what you see here, is a little plat that shows where we were going to cut it up in 7-acre lots. Now, you'll also notice on this, when you get it, the location of the tower, I've marked it with an X, and then right next door to it is our property. We have 68 acres there. We could have put that tower anywhere on that 68 acres, but we chose, again, not to. Our concern for that is, and like I said, this was just original drawing that kind of came up. That the white line you see in there is a proposed road. These were going to be 7-acre sections right here for people to build on. And
Sir, you need to finish up. We're
okay.
almost
Well,
out of time.
I'm not a lawyer, but I am a salesman, so. But we're both full of bull, I guess, so we have to talk. I have an issue with that for the simple fact if we decided to do that, develop that like that, or we even talked about developing, those are the 2 choice pieces on our property right there, where that is right there. And each one of those has the capability of putting multiple houses on. We have talked about that also. I'm not sure how anyone would be concerned about the tower in their backyard, but would you want one in your backyard if you were looking out at it every day? That would be my question there. We also considered the fact that why put it in that back right corner? Obviously, they put it in the back right corner because they didn't want it to be out there where someone else could see it also. That's the least objective spot for them. There was one other thing that we were concerned about. And could you go back to that other picture you had up there of the big circle the guys from AT&T had up there? I'm assuming all these other blue dots, what are these blue dots? Was that proposed locations or things?
If you look up to the right,
Okay, I'm just add that. Okay, if you'll see up there at the very top where the green is up there, that's all woods up there. There's about 3/4 of a mile maybe up to that line up there. We own 48 acres up there. We offered them that. That's the highest point in that particular area. There's not another hill around there any higher than that right there. So if they want coverage, that'd be the ideal spot to get it. We offered that to them as an alternative. All I'm saying is we are dead set against that for that particular reason, and we respectfully ask that you vote against it for that simple fact.
Thank you, sir.
I've got a couple of questions. Sir, is your property to the right of that?
See where the tower site is?
Yes, sir.
Okay, we're right there below it, that number 4, right there below it. That's our
One
site.
other question. Where do you live?
We live in Brentwood. We don't live on the particular property right now.
Okay, thank you.
It belongs to our family.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else? Close the public hearing. Now I'm going to ask that Mr. Perry, here's what we do, folks, now. We ask a third-party person to come and evaluate whether this meets requirements or not. We're not a legislative body. We can't change the law. So, Mr. Perry, would you come forward this time? He's a consultant, and Doug, would you please introduce him and give us a little bit of his background?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thank you. As you stated, this is Mr. Larry Perry. He has done this kind of work for quite some time. You're probably a lot better at explaining your background than I would be. But we have asked, as Danielle stated in her comments when she opened up the presentation here, the zoning ordinance gives the planning director the authority to ask for an independent third-party review of the application to make sure that the application does meet the criteria in the ordinance and that the materials submitted along with that. Mr. Perry does work around the state, most close to home in Williamson County. Williamson County actually contracts with him specifically to do these sites. Their process is a little different than ours, but he's basically doing the same thing for Rutherford County as he would be doing for Williamson County, but this is at the expense of the cell providers, the company, that this is not through county expense. So with that, I'll just turn it over to Mr. Perry. Thank you.
First, let me address a couple of things, and I have some other comments after we finish all your hearings here, the thing we passed out to you earlier. Let me address the first gentleman here, the ham operator. I'm also a ham operator for about 60 years, and this commission, the federal law prohibits the Board of Zoning Appeals or any state agency or local agency from considering anything to do with RF radiation, okay? So the concern about radiation cannot be considered in any kind of discussion here with this particular board. Now, as a practical matter, the antennas and the frequencies at which this proposed transmitters will operate on top of the 199-foot tower, and even if there's 4 carriers up there, there won't be enough RF radiation there to even make the meter move hardly on the ground because the ham operator, his transmitter runs a heck of a lot more power than all those combined. So forget about the radiation part of it. Now, with regard to the setbacks and the other part of the application, they meet the requirements, Mr. Chairman, of your ordinance. I don't make a decision as far as the recommendation pro or con. That's your decision. I just tell you that they meet the requirements of the ordinance, of your rules. Now, if you have any particular questions, I'll be glad to address those, but with that prefix, I want to keep it as short as we can.
Have any questions of our consultant? Thank you, Mr. Perry. You may be seated. The staff recommends that this meets the standards that we review these on. Our consultant recommends that we meet it.
Yes.
So do you have some questions?
I don't really have any questions, Mr. Chairman. I just got a comment I want to make. I know we've been dealing with cell phone towers, and especially in the last few months. We've had several come before us, and I guess I necessarily hadn't just been against cell phone towers. I think my biggest issue with them or with the whole thing is just maybe not knowing a lot about what they, there's a lot of questions about radiation. There's been a lot of questions about their needs, coverage area. We I know our staff and Mr. Tomasi's office. We continuously do a continuing education, try to educate us on everything really. I guess we've been more focused on cell phone tower stuff here because that's what's been a thing for, and that's what we've lacked some education in. Matter of fact, we just had a continuing education class that we all attended, and that's what we were focused on, to educate us on a lot of things we had questions about. I think it was very good. Helped us a lot. I know, I guess everybody doesn't want a cell phone tower in their neighborhood. This, in my opinion, this one location is very rural. I know the gentleman's proposal, whatever, possibly may or may not happen with his lots. The gentleman that spoke that's next to him, but this is it's a rural area. I think it does. I mean, they've proved that it is a need, and to do that, I think we've asked our staff in the last couple of months to help provide us not only our education, but to give us. I know I requested, do we have anybody with the county or anybody that had an expertise in cell phone tower stuff? Well, we don't, but Mr. Tomasi has went with Mr. Perry here and got us the information that we needed. And I'm looking at Mr. Perry's credentials, and he's been doing this for a long, long time. And without going over every one of them, I mean, he's been on the record and professional with the FAA, the FCC. He's testified before Congress about communication matters. I mean, his credentials are impeccable. So I think we've got, in my opinion, about the most expert advice that we could get, and to make the right decision. And so, just that being said, I think we've all tried to do the best homework we can, and I appreciate Mr. Mossy and his staff trying to provide us with the best stuff they can and educate us the best they can on this stuff.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to approve for staff's recommendations.
Have a motion that be approved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Let me also comment. I really appreciate the unbiased and second opinion. With all of the folks that have come up here, that have been opposed to cell towers in their neighborhood, we need to make sure that we're making the right decision, because we want folks to understand we do hear them, we listen to them. But here's the bottom line. If it meets our requirements, folks, we can't turn it down. And as far as Brentwood is concerned, we were down there the other day, and I guess we counted 6 or 8 on the hills in Brentwood. So you've got your cell towers down there as well. So that's okay. I just thought I might comment on that. And so we're going to be faced with more and more decisions in our neighborhood here. So I think it's good we have Mr. Perry to give us an unbiased and expert opinion about the cell towers. We have a motion on the floor. We have a second. Call the roll, please.
Keith Bratcher.
Yes.
Joe Crowell.
Yes.
Jerry Sartain.
Yes.
Jared Barrett.
Yes.
Thane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, the next item of business we have is a request for a cell tower, and this is at Flat Rock Road. What do you have on that, please?
Thank you. Application 2014-19 is a request for special exception approval for the establishment of a monopole communications tower measuring 199 feet in height. The property is located in the residential medium zoning district and is also located at 576 Flat Rock Road. The site is a 4.47 acre property and is developed with a residential home. These are photos of the surrounding area. This is the drive, access drive that will be used to access the cell tower site, and it's also the same drive that is used to access the residential home. And the surrounding area includes a mobile home park, single-family homes, mobile homes, and there is an auto storage yard just north of the property that you'll see in the aerials. We posted the sign on the property. We received one informational call on the request. This is the site plan showing the location of the tower being in the center. The tower itself is 157 feet from the closest property line and does not meet the setback requirement for a fall radius equal to the height of the tower. However, our ordinance provides for the applicant to show a fall radius certification showing that the tower will not fall on adjacent property, and that has been submitted by the applicant today, indicating that the fall radius for this tower is 143 feet. The tower is located within 105 feet of the existing residence, but the person or the property owner is well aware of that distance. And this tower elevation as well as the site plan. And we find that it meets the requirements. We've also received a report from the third-party unbiased expert indicating that it meets the requirements of our zoning ordinance, as well as the applicant has provided us with, in your binders tonight, with the two items that Mr. Perry indicated would further demonstrate that the application meets our zoning. That concludes our presentation.
We have pretty much the same standards here. Well, I'm going to ask the attorney to come back representing the cell towers. Board members, do you have any questions of the attorney about this? It's pretty much the same thing. Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I realize you're in the center of that lot there, and you're supposedly in the fall zone. But what is the closest neighborhood house? What's the distance from that tower? Do you know? I don't mean the one that lives on the property. I'm talking about the other one.
I'm being told by staff it's 357 feet.
Thank you a lot.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank
We'll
you.
open this for a public hearing for anyone who'd like to speak on this request. If you'll come around, please, give us your name.
My name is George Stiles. I live in the house that's right adjacent to the right-of-way to get back to the property. I'm not an expert, but I did a little bit of reading on the internet about it. And from what I've seen, according to this one study they had in Brazil, they linked 7,000 cancer deaths to RF radiation from cell phone towers. Whether it's the same level of intensity of what this one will produce, I don't know. But that's just a study I've seen on the internet. And another thing, if I was to buy that house today and I was there, I would not buy that house. And I was just wondering how long, excuse me, I'm a little nervous.
That's okay. Just
not used to speaking.
make your statement. Go ahead.
I was just wondering how long it's going to be before they go to actually put the tower on the property. Does anybody have that information? How long it's going to be for a time frame?
Once it's approved here, it takes some time before all of this takes place, so it'll be a little bit. So if you want to sell out, is that what you're thinking about?
Yes, I am going to
Okay.
sell out.
That'll give you plenty of time. So I'd put my shingle out tonight,
About 6 months, a year.
probably. as soon as they can. So
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
I got one question. Is this your residence right here?
No, it's not.
This one?
No, one down.
Right here?
Yes, that
Oh,
one.
okay, thank you.
Another thing is whenever traffic goes up and down that road there, it creates a dust storm. And that's the only reason why we don't have a clothesline outside, because they fly up and down that driveway all the time. It just creates a big, humongous dust storm.
thank you. Anyone else? Close the public hearing. Any questions, comments? Have a motion on it.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion be approved.
Have a motion be approved. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Call the roll, please.
Keith Pratcher,
Yes.
Joe Crowell,
Yes.
Gary Sartain,
Yes.
Jared Barrett,
Yes.
Zane Cantrell.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, we're going back to, I'll give you just a minute, Mr. Perry. We're going back to Mohammed's. He's still not here?
Mr. Chairman, I don't know if I need to make a motion or whatever, but I just move that we maybe put this off to the next month,
Next month? Okay. And see if you guys can get a hold of him. Do we have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed, like sign. So that one's delayed till next month, and we'll try to get a hold of him to see what the problem is, see if there's any changes. Mr. Perry, I'm sorry, come. And he did review this, by the way, and we have that in writing, so his review of it.
Let me say what's about to happen, folks, so that you guys are going to be involved, just like all the other counties and municipalities around the state. Right now, the FCC licensed 13 different carriers. You've got 6 in this area and 1 possible coming in. The FCC last Friday just released a note where they're releasing much more bandwidth, and they're going to allow 4 more carriers. So instead of having 7 carriers in Rutherford County, you're going to have probably maybe 20. So your headaches are just beginning on these towers. Now, one of the things about the towers that I wanted to tell you, and again, I could explain a little bit of this in your notes that I gave you earlier. You're going to see them shorter rather than taller. You know, when they first came out, they were 300-400 foot tall lattice towers, and now they're going to the monopole, looks like a flagpole out there. And you're going to see those start coming down because the radius is coming. They're trying to move it in. They're trying to make it smaller. And the reason for that is those of you who've got smartphones, everybody's got a smartphone or an iPad or something like that, and now you're starting to watch television on it. Well, that eats up a lot of space, and so whenever you have a lot of data on your radio, it pulls your service area in. And so as a result, you're going to have more towers. And now, if you take the whole United States and you put a crosshatch pattern, Mr. Chairman, across the state, each one of the squares, each 1 mile in each one of the squares of the crosshatch, if you put a tower in each one of the, or antenna support structure, in each one of those 4 corners, you're not going to have enough to cover the area and provide the service that people are demanding. It's a demand, it's a public demand for the service is what it amounts to. I'm not trying to, I don't have a dog in the hunt, but I'm just telling you what you're about to see. And so as time comes on, you're going to see probably between now and Christmas, I wouldn't be a bit surprised to see you about 15 or 20 more towers and applications in Rutherford County. We've got 28 going into Knox County, for example. There's 17 in Greene County. So it's about to hit you. So just be aware of it, Your Honor.
Thank you, Mr. Perry. And we're going to arrange some time where we can sit down with you before the end of the year and maybe go over some more detail with him. So if you'll make those arrangements as well. And let me, for those of you that are left here, thank you so much for being here. Good presentation. And board members, we didn't stay too long tonight, did we? Like some will. We are adjourned. Thank you.